Hey guys, Sam here, middle of the day, October 10th, and I wanted to go over a couple of markets that we had been looking at last week, and I think you'll find there's some things that you can learn here that will be valuable to you. So I'm going to start here with Spreadcoin. Now, if you look back through some videos of last week, this was one that we were analyzing. It was getting so some news last week. It was 2 days in a row. It was the top performing cryptocurrency against both the dollar and Bitcoin, and so we were looking at it to see if we could, if it was tradable, if there's anything there that we might be able to take advantage of. And you may recall, if you didn't see that video, that we just went through a very basic analysis, and the one thing that we could see very clearly was that we had this very clean 5-wave sequence down, which implies that the trend is lower. And when we were first looking at it, we were sitting right here. We had this. We had an ABC, and my point was, well, until proven otherwise, this does not look particularly bullish. Yet there was a lot of FOMO, and there was a lot of news, and it was pumping. This was the classic pump and dump. And what I was saying was to not fall for that, because that's really players in the market and people with an agenda, right? Everybody's in the market to make money, right? So let's be clear, we all have the same agenda. But in terms of how you approach trading cryptocurrencies, it's exactly the same as it would be with any currency or any asset, right? You've got to have a foundation that you always bring to the market, because otherwise your human emotions will cloud your judgment, and it will get you making decisions that are not consistent with the methodology, at least that I'm trying to teach you. And that's going to lead to severe financial pain. So let's look at this. So when at this point, as we were looking at it last week, my point was, well, I don't know how you'd want to get long there, because we had just wicked the 618. And I think I said, well, if I had to trade this, that we could, on the possibility that we have now somehow completed this, or if I had to do it, I would just pull a fib, right? So we pulled the fib, and you can see what happens. So it goes right to the 61865 box, goes through by $1, and then rips up to the -23. So signs of algos, certainly. Now, so you've got to look at that and say, well, what can we conclude from that? Well, we know that an internal retracement like this, particularly with an ABC, can go as deep as the 786 or deeper at times, but it still remains internal. So there were some people looking at that going, oh, well, okay, so you don't know what you're talking about, because this thing's going to the moon. So, you have to be consistent, I guess, is my broader point. So what happens? So we go through the 618. Well, does that mean change of trend? Well, when we came down here and broke again, so we did it twice, there was strong evidence that we'd had a trend change. But I want to make the point here of, kind of establishing the idea of building evidence and building a case. So if we have a 5-wave sequence here, and we're trying to evaluate whether or not we have a top here or here. Well, here, clearly you've got the 618, and we get a reaction. But there's one more leg up. So if that's the case, well, does that mean, oh, wait a minute, now we've gone bullish here, we've had a trend change? Well, we are, we're still basing our view of the market off of the foundation that markets trend in 5s and correct in 3s. But there is often that we find Fibonacci relationships between these, as they are internal and external retracements. So we want to look for relationships between these swings. So the most common relationship between an A wave and a C wave is 100%. Now look where that goes. So this would be the classic box that you would draw up here and say, well, okay, there's my 786, and my 100. So again, I'm not saying that that's a short, although that was one hell of a short. I'm saying that you've got a confluence here that requires you to draw a little box, right? And you never just a quick point, you never want to try, if you were trying to short that, you never put your entry on the number, on the 100%, because particularly if they're algos, they're always going to front run it by a few ticks. So just, quick little lesson. Same with the 618 here. It's never on the number. It's always a few ticks before, right? And the amount before is relative to, the size of the market, the spread, how much money is that, and your risk tolerance. But so, again, here, trending in 5s, correcting in 3s, technical, perfect pattern. We can look at, did we have, give me a second here. We would definitely want to look at that. Right, so it wicks it, goes through, wicks it, but there's the 100 and just completely rips. And look where it goes. Okay, again, this is, I don't know how many markets I have to show this to you, but hopefully you're getting it. You're getting it now, right? So where does it go? Right, so we get the ABC, and it rips exactly to the tick to the negative 23.6. Algo target. And what happens? We rip away. So there's the profit taking. There's the reaction. So what can we conclude from that? Well, clearly algos are in this market. As it was pumping and trading as the top performing coin for 2 days in a row. So if algos weren't in it before, they certainly got in it after that. So there's your evidence, right? To the 100, to the negative 23, tick to tick. So where does that go from here? Well, I'm not saying that this is necessarily a coin that you want to trade, but if you're interested in it for whatever reason, something about the fundamental story. I think when we looked at this on CoinGecko, if I recall, oh no, it was Spreadcoin. Hang, I don't remember. Yeah, there it is. What our score was here. Let's take a look. Yeah, it was 39. So suspect, right? So I will always tell you, look for a score of 50 or higher. 50 or higher. So it was question mark. So when you see that and you've got this clear, right? Remember, when Elliot's most useful is when it's just so easy you can't miss it. So we get a really clean 5, a really clear, like, a 6-year-old could see that, into the ABC, and look at that reaction. Look at that reaction. So is this pump, dump, fear, greed, fear, however you want to quantify it. Here's just one more example of a pattern repeating in the market that repeats every day in thousands of assets, across the globe. It's just the way the markets move, and until we see evidence counter to that, I propose to you this is how you want to approach the market. So it was very easy here when we had this rip up here to go, oh well, I guess we're ripping to new highs. But that's why you've got to continually analyze every pivot that you see. Well, wait a minute. So if it's gone through the 618, well, we got to consider the 786 because it can stay internal and still be a 786. Maybe this was a 1 and a 2, and we know a 2 can go to the 786, can go even further, can go to the 887. But you got to look at that and say, well, what else? What else could be there? So, well, I know I got to look at the relationship between the A wave and the C wave. Well, boom, right? Almost to the tick, and then look at that reaction. And so, does that mean change of trend? What does that mean? Well, at this point, I'll tell you what I would be doing if I were in here trading this. I'd be pulling the next fib, because until proven otherwise, you trade it until it fails. So, is that 1, 2, 1 of 3 going much lower? Don't know. But what can I see here? Well, I got a nice little confluence right here. I got the 50 and I got the Vegas wave and the 233 all lining up right there. So is that a trade? Well, it's a contender. When it gets right here, I want to know. So that's one to set an alarm at. Who knows where that goes? I don't know a lot about the fundamental story other than what I can read from just noodling around, as any of us can. But I can look at that pattern and say, well, trading is about probabilities, and that's a very clear three-wave implying counter trend. I got my trend here, so what am I looking for? If I wanted to be short, boy, that sure is the right spot for it. And allow, I guess the other lesson here is allow your trades to get to target. Because the temptation is when this thing starts ripping down to just grab it. That's your instinct is to, oh God, it's so hard to make money. I got to get profit while I can. When you've got a clear target like that, you got to let it play. Now you can take, I'm not opposed to taking a partial profit when you're getting at some sort of significant level, or at the very least tighten your stop. But it's always good to bank. So if you've got a position that allows for you to take a partial, always a good idea when you're hitting the fibs on the other way, on the opposite direction. So that's a good spot because you're going to expect a reaction. But allow for your trade to reach the target that was established when you went into the market. All right, let's spread. These were two that we looked at last week. It was Spreadcoin and Vertcoin. Okay, so there's something to learn here. So this is Vertcoin. All right, so look at this. So again, just rudimentary. Elliott count, maybe, I don't know. It's not real clean. Is this the 1? Is this the 3? Is that the 5? Is it, hard to see. What do I see? I do see swings. So I can go from low to high. Well, we hover at the 50, the 618 holds it. Then we get this big rip here, and we come down and we go right to the 233. We actually get just a few ticks beyond the 65. So a little push, but look at the reaction from that. Look at the reaction from that. So, this is one where, from an Elliott perspective, hard to read what you have because we had the potential for this to be a 1, 2, 3, looking for the 4. And I think when we were analyzing it, we were suggesting that, well, if there's a trade here to the long side, we want to take the 50. And so if I pull some of this off, here was the trade that was a contender looking for new highs. Comes to the 50 or the 618, we get into that little box. We hover. So if you went long here on the possibility that you had a 1-2, well, again, that's the benefit of this is that this is a very, very, very low risk, right? If you're even if you took the 50, that's $1.23. The other side of the 65 is $1.13. I mean, depending on your size, right? I mean, that could sting, but it's not going to hurt you, right? And when you're wicking through the 618 and you start to accelerate, well, certainly those are red flags that the trade's not working out. So you want to be out and let it settle. So now it comes all the way to that little window, right? Good. That's the severe kind of wick that you'll see in crypto, right? As stops are hit. It's extreme here. The last panic sell is right here, just on the other side of the 65, and then off it goes. So you've got to now be looking at, well, if it's coming back the other direction, I got to consider what I'm going to run into here. So we get 50 reaction. Now we're to and through the 618. So is that clearly an indication that we're going off to new highs? No. But if we're looking for the next trade, now that we've broken the 618, and if we want to stay bullish, we want to wait until we can establish a clear pivot up here, and then we wait for the next 50. Or if you want to be more conservative, maybe you catch it between the 618 and the 50. So next entry, contender. Always want to be, if you're going to enter on the 50, you always do it just on the other side of it, because it'll never, if the trade is good, it'll turn a few ticks before the 50, right? Algos won't give it to you on the number. So there you have it. So that kind of extreme action right there, so what can you do? There's an 8-hour, so I'd go down to the 4-hour, and you wait. We don't know if that's the pivot enough yet to establish that that's the draw. We don't know with it yet. I mean, it's still moving pretty strongly here. So is that it? We got an A, B, C here. We're waiting for a pivot to establish here, and then we wait for the 2. If you want to be in this coin, if you want to be in Vertcoin, right? And it's been responding pretty well, but no trade at the moment. You can't buy it here. Well, you can do whatever you like, but I mean, I certainly wouldn't buy it, there, right? You're very late to the party, much higher risk because where's your stop going to be? If you're going to buy it here because it's on the move today, where's your stop? Are you going to put your stop on the other side of the 50, the most likely place for it to retrace, the 618, the last swing low? How much risk do you want to take? So if you want to get long, I propose to you that you're sitting on your hands and you're waiting for the next retracement. All right, how am I doing on time? There's 15 minutes. Real quick, I had a couple of requests. This is one that I didn't know a lot about this coin, but it's AdEx. And let me bring it up here. Where there it is. So over to CoinGecko. Let's see, how it looks. So, one to consider. I tell you to look for 50 or above, but that's close enough to take a look at it. So, interesting story, right? So it's an advertising platform. So I'll let you read about it, and you don't want to do any research on it if you're considering the coin. If you know something, about the potential here, something within the development community, or if you've got some ideas for whatever reason, well, let's look at it. Looks like it's active amongst the development community. It's got a good, Twitter following, I should say. What are we looking at? 52 million in market cap. It's a relatively new coin. Genesis date is July 1st of 2017. So, definitely one to consider. Okay, so for whatever reason, you're sniffing it out. Okay, so let's look at it against the dollar. Well, okay, so I guess one lesson here is, this is why you. Unless you've got some reason to be in that or something that there's your ICO day. I don't know how anyone trades that, right? Unless you can catch the run up and then the inevitable sell down. That's untradeable to me. So you wait until some history establishes. Well, so we can do just some basic things. So we can look at that absolute high. Well, we can look at that high and see, and can I learn anything from that? That's interesting. Okay, so we get just shy of the 618, and then we're moving down. So we have, just knowing from that, we know we've got our negative 23 down here. So that's yet to be achieved. Just because it's there doesn't mean that it's going to get there, but that's something to keep in mind. But let's say for whatever reason I'm on an 8-hour and you're looking to get bullish. Let's go to a 4-hour. We can get a better look at it and maybe put it into context. So we've got this. Let's see what I can glean from this. So we'd go just as we always would. We'd pull fibs from our last swing high down to our low. Well, I guess this technically would be our low right here. There's our low. Okay, 50, 23 to the tick. Okay, what does that tell us? Algos. Right. So now we'd have to consider this one. Where do we go? Right, that's the algo target. Where do we go? Few shy of the 50. Now we're back down. So, is there a trade there to the long side? Well, if you're bullish for whatever reason, can you squeeze out an Elliott count? Well, you might have a 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you might have a 1, 2 there. So it's too soon to call that, but we would go from swing low to swing high. Well, what do we learn? Interesting. So here's the Vegas wave. Here's the 618, shy of it by a tick. So if that's going to start to roll, so you could make a case here that this is one to, at the very least, watch. So we might have, hard to call that. So we might have 1, 2, 3, 4. That could be a nice 5. Let me put that on a. No, that'll work. So if that's the case, then what we're trying to catch the larger trend. So we're trying to catch this. So let me give that a higher degree. We'll go up to primary, and I'll put that in blue. Okay, so does that make sense? Right? This I don't love this low, but this was some sort of corrective action here. So I can't call that a 1 because of the 3 waves, so we're going to start the count from here. So if I'm going from here, well, now I got a 1 wave. I've gone down from my 2. I've gone right into the little window. I mean, how many times, if you're watching my videos, how many times have I shown that to you? Right between the 618 and the 65. 50, 100 times have I shown that to you? So I hope that's on your chart. Here's our Vegas wave, right? So we're stalling there. So if that's the 2, well, what are we looking for on the upside? Well, we know we're going to have some resistance up here because of the pulls I just showed you. So here's the 50 that we stalled at. Here's the 618. If that's the 2, right? If this is our from this low to high, here's the 23. That's the first algo target. Here's the negative 618. So if that's going to be the 2, well, we got to establish it based on its distance and its relationship to the 1 wave. So at a minimum, if it's going to be a 3, it's got to go 100%. It's got to go 100% of the length of wave 1, or we can't. Or this could just be an ABC before we start down again to our. Remember, our long-term targets are down at this negative 23. But if you want to be a bull here, well, if you think that's your 2, well, we anytime you got 3 pivots, we're going to draw the pitchfork. Does that work? Well, I'd be looking for this over here, so maybe it's going to take more time. Maybe there's a leg up there. So, one to watch, because where's the first trade? I would propose to you, because you've got conflicting signals here, and you're basically caught between the 50 here of the high to low and the 618 that we've wicked here. So we'd be looking for this. So, again, you want to keep it lower risk. First push, second push. That's the trade right there. And ideally comes right to the outside edge of the median line. So you can enter there with a stop under the 2, because if we're going to break that, well, then maybe this count is invalid. We can get a nice ABC here into this 2. If it rips here, you don't think, oh, damn, I missed it. You wait for the retracement. That's the only way, you're never worried about missing something, because there will always be a retracement, because there will be profit taking, because that's just human emotion. People will want to take profit. And if it starts to roll over just a little bit, then the stops get hit, and that's what accelerates the retracement. So you wait. You can be a buyer here. If you're aggressive and you really like the story, well, you can be a buyer here because your stop is very close, and you're entering the market on the assumption that your too low is in. It's in, right? So we've got structure, we've got the fib count, we got the Vegas wave. You got a lot of things right here. You want to be more conservative. Wait for a little kick, and then the retrace. Try and catch the outside edge of the pitchfork. How am I doing on time? That's 22. Okay. One more as a request. This is IOTA, which is an interesting thing, interesting story, I should say, Internet of Things. So this, anytime IOTA is apparently available now on Bitfinex. It's available on Binance, which is an exchange that I was not trading. I just opened an account there today on suggestion from a friend. He's had a good experience there, and if you're interested in this coin, that's a place you can go look to find it. It's Binance.com. So I brought this up, and he asked me to take a look at it. So if we look at this is against Bitcoin. Well, we've had this huge, the typical ICO kind of action. So now let's just, if we were looking at just like any coin, right, you're going to see this process so many times. So if you're looking for the low here, well, the first thing we do is pull there. Well, it goes deep, but we know a wave 2, if that was going to be the wave 2, can go to the 786, which it does. We get a little 3-wave structure. So maybe that's your 1. There's your 2. There's the giant 3. Now there's a good example. Look where that goes. In extremes, it will go to the negative 618. I think I showed you that in a video, on a Bitcoin video today. So in an extreme, as we're seeing here, we go from the 786, which is the extreme retracement, to the negative 618, almost to the tick, which is the extreme extension, external retracement targets. So you might have been looking at that going, wow, this thing is ripping. So I definitely got a 3-wave. So how am I gonna get into that? If you didn't catch that, well, now of course you'd be thinking that, well, that's my 2. I'm pulling up here. I'm looking for the reaction at the 38 or the 50. Well, you had contenders, right? That was a contender. Fail. Well, now okay. So now that invalidates that count. So it can't be a 1, 2, 3, 4. Can't be it. So you got to disqualify that and say, well, maybe that was just an A, B, and some massive C. It's corrective, right? Because we're still contained within the all-time high, so we're still in an internal retracement. Sorry, let me just same process. So we pull from low to high, or pardon me, from high to our first swing low. We go right to the 618. Well, here, so first time we go 618, then 618, just a couple of ticks before. Remember, if you were going to be shorting there, you never go on the absolute. Let me get it dialed in almost to the tick. Through the 23, down to the negative 618, big reaction. So we would just continue that process. So we'd pull from there, but we'd have to consider the last swing high. 50, 618 holds it. Down we go, negative 23, 618. Big wick here, almost makes the negative 100. Well, now, so we're still going. New low. There's the 50. We still haven't broken that. So it comes back up right into the pocket of the Vegas wave. There's the 50. Can't get there. So, he's long. The guy who asked me to look at this, he's long, looking for an analysis. Well, unless you've got in fundamental information that would encourage you to want to get on the long side, and you're looking for a way to get in, well, you got to trade it against Bitcoin. So, with Bitcoin's strength, it's going to be hard for anything to outperform that, right? Alts, will typically take a bath. So, if you were going to be a buyer, right? I mean, maybe you're making the play off of the double bottom. You check your oscillators. Well, you've got extremes here, but you had extreme, 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 and none of those kicked it. You got the energy potential, the OBV. You might look for a cross there, but really, you want to see it get the target, because algos are likely in here based off of this activity. So you want to see them get their target, or you're fighting them. And they will almost always win. So I would be waiting here. And so how would you quantify it? I'd pull from this low. If we do get a double bottom swing here, I'd want to see it breaking. Where's my arrow? I'd want to see it breaking through that. Really, you want to see it breaking through the wave, the Vegas wave. So first get through the 618. Then, if that's the case, well, then if you are establishing a new trend, then you wait for the 50. If you were looking to get long, right? If you like the story, or if you know the story, you've got some sort of reason to be long fundamentally, well, maybe we've got a double bottom here. Possible. I'd rather be a buyer. I'd rather be a buyer down here, because I know algos will have hit their targets, and they could add fuel to that as they start buying, right, to close out their shorts. That can be the fuel that kicks it. Well, we got a lot of targets to get through, so I'd like to see that to establish that indeed we have a new bullish trend starting. And if I'm going to catch that, I'm going to wait for the 50 or the 618. Again, it's the same thing over and over again until it proves otherwise. The trade here is to keep selling it. So a setup right here would be likely. So I wouldn't be a buyer here myself, because it looks unresolved. Even though last time we got down here, we had support. I mean, I suppose you could make a case that you've got long-term demand down here at these kind of prices. So all of that tells me to be looking to be a buyer lower. I'd like to see it. I mean, here this would be, if I pull this off, this would be nice right here, right in this little window. Here's my fib target. So right, if you're a bull, you're a braver man than I, or you feel like you're confident in the information that you know about the long-term potential here. Otherwise, I'm waiting for that. Okay, that's I'm at 28 minutes. I try and keep these a little shorter. All right, I'll wrap there, guys. If I've got anything new to show you today, I'll be back later.